Two abandoned children in the deep forest. Snow fell in silence, blanketing the winding mountain road in an eerie stillness. The night had long swallowed the world, and the only sound that broke the hush was the spinning of tires on icy gravel. A man stumbled out of a wrecked car, his breath clouding in the cold, panicked and trembling. Blood stained the sleeve of his coat as he dragged himself forward, clutching something tight in his arms. Behind him, two tiny girls, barely toddlers, shivered in the dark. He wasn't supposed to be here. The plan had gone wrong. Too many eyes, too many consequences. He had done a terrible thing. Now, like a hunted animal, he fled with what he still had: his daughters, Victoria and Lily. But where could he go now? The forest loomed ahead, dark, vast, and seemingly endless. With every step, the shadows deepened. The man moved like a ghost among trees, the children clinging to his coat. The oldest, Victoria, barely 5 years old, held tightly to her baby sister's hand. Thina cabin, old, isolated, half buried under snow. Its windows were broken, the door unhinged, but it stood shelter. He pushed it open. Dust and silence. No one had lived here for decades. He laid the girls on a dusty mattress and collapsed in a corner. He cried not out of sadness, but fear. His hands trembled. He reached into his coat for the revolver. Then he heard a whisper. A cold breeze passed through the broken window. The trees rustled, but not with the wind. Something unseen moved through them. He looked up, and he saw her. A crooked figure, long limbs, hair flowing like black seaweed. She hovered, her face obscured in shadow, eyes glimmering like moonlight reflected on water. Her shape was wrong, too tall, too thin, as if stretched by grief. She glided, not walked. No sound, no breath. The man raised the gun to slow. A scream pierced the night. 5 years later, two men trudged through the snow, jackets zipped, boots crunching the earth. Think they could have survived? One asked. The other shrugged. Unlikely. That deep in the forest, in winter, it's been 5 years. But when they reached the cabin, something made them stop. Footprints. Small, fresh ones. Like a child's, moving between the snow and the trees. They drew closer and saw movement. Inside the ruined cabin, two figures crouched like animals. Two little girls, Saliv, Victoria and Lily. Thin, feral, their eyes darted like cornered animals. Their clothes were rags, their hands and faces smeared with dirt. But they were alive. Barely. The men called out. The girls screamed. They didn't speak. They growled, crawled, hissed, as if they'd forgotten how to be human. And behind them, in the shadows near the Chillinga, dark stain moved. A shape, watching. But when the men blinked, it was gone. The custody battle. Victoria and Lily were taken to the hospital, cleaned, fed. The world was astonished. How had they survived alone for 5 years in the wilderness? No one could explain it. Some called it a miracle. Others called it unnatural. The girls didn't talk at first, until Victoria whispered a name. Mama. Not their real mother. She had died long ago. The man who had taken them missing, presumed dead. So who was Mama? Social workers dismissed it as a coping mechanism, a psychological defense, a fantasy protector. But the girls insisted. Mama took care of us. She sang to us. She kept us warm. One night, when a nurse entered the room, she found Lily talking softly to the corner of the ceiling, giggling. "There's no one there, sweetie," she said. Lily frowned. "You made Mama sad." The lights flickered. Lucas Desange, the girl's uncle, fought for custody. He was their only remaining family. A kind, patient man. He had spent years searching for them. Now, he wanted to bring them home. Psychologists warned him. The girls were different, especially Lily. She would talk to walls. She refused to sleep alone. Sometimes she would scratch at the floor, muttering, "Don't let Mama fall." Still, Lucas took them in. He moved into a cozy house with his girlfriend, Annabelle, a place with soft lighting and warm colors. They made a room for each girl, painted with gentle pastels and hung with twinkling fairy lights. Victoria adjusted slowly. She was quiet, withdrawn but curious. She watched TV with Lucas. She liked puzzles. She began to speak more. Sometimes she seemed normal. But Lily was different. She hated being alone. If you left her in a room, she screamed. Not a tantrum, a primal, blood-curdling scream that would make your skin crawl. She would sit in the corner and rock back and forth. She would talk to her shadow. And always, she whispered, "Mama." Strange things began. Annabelle first noticed the black stains on the wall, as if something had seeped through the ceiling. She scrubbed them, but they returned the next day. One evening, she was folding laundry when she saw something in the hallway mirror, a flash of movement. Long black hair, a pale arm stretched around the corner. She turned. Nothing. Later that night, the lights flickered. Footsteps creaked across the ceiling. But the girls were asleep. Lucas wasn't home. Then, in the hallway, she saw it. A tall figure, hovering, hair floating, arms unnaturally long, a face not quite human. Annabelle screamed. When Lucas rushed in, it was gone. "She's here," Annabelle gasped. "Mama is real." Lucas tried to dismiss it. Stress, trauma, hallucinations, until he saw it himself. One night, Lily was crying. Lucas went to comfort her, only to find her bed empty, but the crying still echoed. He turned. She was on the ceiling, crawling, upside down. Something invisible was holding her there. "Mama won't let me go," she whispered, her voice like a cold breath in his ear. The therapist's discovery. Dr. Dreyfus, a child trauma expert, visited the girls. She brought toys, art supplies, and gentle questions. Victoria drew quiet things, trees, animals, stars. Lily drew her, again and again. A tall, thin woman with black hair and hollow eyes, her arms outstretched. Sometimes Lily would draw the woman holding a baby, sometimes dropping one. "She lost her baby," Lily whispered. She looked and looked. Then she found us. "Does she love you?" the therapist asked. "Yes, but she's sad." "Why is she sad?" "Because I'm not her baby." Closing scene. That night, the house grew cold. The walls creaked. Shadows lengthened. Lucas woke to the sound of whispering. He walked down the hall. A lullaby echoed, soft and broken. He opened the girls' bedroom. Victoria slept peacefully. Lily's bed was empty. Then he looked up. On the ceiling, clinging to the plaster like a spider, was Lily, wrapped in something dark, like a shroud, cradled in the arms of her. "Mama," Lily said softly, eyes glowing in the dark. Lucas screamed. The figure turned its head. Her face was half decayed, hollowed. Her mouth opened wide, wider than it should, like a wound. And she let out a sound that didn't belong in this world. The whisper in the dark. It started with whispers. At first, Lucas thought they were dreams, strange murmurs floating through the night, barely audible just below the hum of the heater or the rustling of wind outside. But as the days passed, the whispers grew more distinct, not words exactly, but tones, rising and falling like a lullaby sung underwater. Then Lily began to change. Again, she no longer played with toys or responded to questions. She sat by the bedroom window for hours, her small fingers drawing invisible symbols on the glass. Sometimes she giggled, other times she stared blankly, her face pale as snow. At night, the whispers returned, stronger. Lucas swore he could hear his name. Sometimes Annabelle would shake him awake, pale and breathless, saying she'd heard Lily talking to someone who wasn't there. "She's answering questions," Annabelle whispered, "but no one's asking them." One evening, Victoria came to Lucas's room. She stood silently in the doorway, clutching a worn blanket, her hair tangled from sleep. "She's coming back," Victoria said flatly. Lucas sat up, heart skipping. Who, honey? Mama. She's mad. Victoria's eyes were calm, but her voice held something deeper, something far older than her years. She doesn't want us here. She wants Lily. Lucas tried to comfort her, wrapping her in a hug, but she pushed away. She talks to her, in the dark. You can't hear it, but I can. Later that night, Annabelle was in the kitchen when she heard something move behind her. She turned, expecting Lucas, but no one was there. She turned back to the sink. Then the whisper came again, close to close. She spun around. There was a figure, a tall, thin shadow standing just beyond the threshold of the kitchen. In the hallway, it wasn't moving, but it seemed aware, like it was watching. She stepped forward. Lucas. The figure vanished in a blink. The next moment, all the lights went out. Upstairs, Lily's door slammed shut with a deafening thud. Lucas ran to her room, heart pounding. The hallway lights flickered as he grabbed the doorknob and twisted. Locked. Lily, he called, pounding on the wood. Open the door. Baby, it's Daddy. Silence. Then a voice from the other side. But it wasn't Lily. It was deep, gravelly, feminine but unnatural. The words were muffled. She's mine now. Lucas ran the door with his shoulder. Once, twice, on the third hit, it burst open. The room was dark, cold. Lily was curled on the floor, crying softly. But Lucas saw something else, a trail of black, oily handprints stretching up the walls to the ceiling and into the shadows. They called Dr. Dreyfus again. This time, she came with questions and equipment. A voice recorder, EMF meter, thermal camera. Lucas was skeptical, but desperate. He'd read enough to know the line between science and the unknown sometimes blurred in these cases. Dreyfus sat with Lily alone, in a small playroom. She asked simple questions, say about drawings, dreams. Mama, Lily didn't respond. Then Dreyfus placed the recorder in front of her. If Mama is here, she said gently, can she say something to us? Nothing happened for a long time. Then Lily blinked and smiled. The lights flickered, and the recorder began to hum. Later, when they played it back, they heard the static, and then a voice. A whisper. Low, layered, and close. Mine. Victoria grew more restless. She started having night terrors, waking up screaming, drenched in sweat. When asked, she couldn't describe what she saw, only that Mama was wearing someone else's face. Annabelle tried to comfort her, bringing her into their bed. But that night, Annabelle dreamed of drowning. In the dream, she was holding Lily's hand, walking through a dark lake. The water rose higher with each step, but she couldn't stop. Something in the lake was calling her, pulling her. She turned to look at Lily, but Lily wasn't there anymore. She was holding the hand of a tall, twisted woman with no eyes and a gaping mouth, humming the same lullaby from the cabin. Annabelle woke up gasping. Her pillow was soaked with water. Lucas began researching. He dug into records, news articles, forgotten archives, anything he could find about disappearances, tragedies, or legends surrounding the cabin. Then he found it. A mental institution had once stood near the forest, long abandoned. In the 1800s, it burned down in a fire that killed many, including a woman named Edith Brennan. A patient. She had been committed after killing her own child. The story went that Edith had escaped into the woods during the fire, clutching the remains of her baby. She was never found. Locals whispered that her grief anchored her spirit in the forest, searching endlessly for her lost child. The dates matched, the location matched. Edith Brennan. Mama. Lucas printed the file and showed it to Dr. Dreyfus. She's not protecting them, he said. She thinks they're hers. Dreyfus nodded gravely, and she doesn't want to let go. They needed help, not just medical, spiritual. Lucas called in a contact, a man named Tomas, a former priest who now worked in spiritual investigation. Not an exorcist, but someone who knew how to navigate these crossings. When Tomas arrived, he immediately sensed it. "She's here," he said, walking into the girl's room. "She's strong, bound by grief and by obsession." They set up protective item scandals, prayers, sigils on paper tucked into corners. But that only made her angry. That night, every mirror in the house shattered, windows rattled, furniture scraped across the floor. Tomas lit incense and began to chant in low, calming Latin. It worked for a while, until the whisper came back. It was different this time. It wasn't from Lily's room. It was from inside the walls. A long, drawn-out moan, full of sorrow, full of rage. Me-she-ye. The climax came 3 nights later. It was to 16 a.m. when the storm hit. Lightning split the sky. The wind howled like screaming children. And somewhere in the chaos, the house seemed to groan as if something ancient had awoken. Lucas and Annabelle rushed to the girl's room. Lily was gone. Victoria sat frozen in bed, eyes wide, pointing toward the ceiling. "She took her," she whispered. Lucas ran to the attic. There, in the farthest corner, lit by moonlight through a cracked tile, stood Lily, arms outstretched, head flitting off the floor. And behind her was Mama, no longer a shadow. She was whole, twisted, gray-skinned, with sunken cheeks and black tears streaming down her face. Her bones jutted at wrong angles. Her long fingers curled around Lily's shoulders. She turned her head toward Lucas. Her face melted into different forms: Lily's face, Annabelle's face, a baby's face, and back to Edith's. "You left me," she hissed. Lucas stepped forward. "No, she's not yours," Mama shrieked. A shockwave of cold blasted through the attic. Lucas dropped to his knees. Lily was crying now, trembling. Lucas, with all the strength he had, crawled toward her. "Lily, look at me. I'm your family. I'm here." Tears rolled down Lily's face. She reached for him. For a moment Mama hesitated. Her decayed hand brushed Lily's hair. A flicker of sorrow crossed her twisted face. And then Victoria entered the attic, holding the old blanket from the cabin. "She gave this to us," Victoria said, her voice trembling. "She sang to us when we were scared. She was kind once." Mama turned, her face softened. "You can go," Victoria whispered. "You don't have to be angry anymore." Something broke in the air. The wind stopped. Mama stepped back, her shape dimming, fading into shadow. She looked at Lily once more. And then, she was gone. The house remained quiet. The girls slowly began to heal. There were still whispers, sometimes still strange shadows at the edge of mirrors. But Mama never returned. Not like before. Victoria began drawing again. Lily laughed. They played in the sun. Lucas and Annabelle stayed close, never letting them feel alone. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind passed through the trees, a lullaby echoed faintly in the dark, soft, sad, and gone before you could be sure it was ever there. The strange woman appears. The days after the attic encounter passed in an uneasy calm. The house had gone quiet. No more flickering lights, no shattered mirrors. The air no longer held that unbearable weight, that thick tension like something unseen breathing down their necks. But Lucas didn't trust the silence. Victoria slept better now. She no longer clutched her blanket like a shield. Lily, too, began speaking in full sentences again. Her voice was small, sometimes uncertain, but no longer filled with fear. "She's gone," Victoria had whispered one morning, looking out the kitchen window as snow dusted the grass. But was she? Annabelle still caught movement from the corners of her eyes, still felt cold spots when no windows were open, still heard a faint creak in the hallway at night like someone passing by, barefoot. Lucas told himself it was nerves, leftover trauma. But something deeper inside him knew better. Mama hadn't left. She had only stepped back. It was on the third night, round 3 a.m., that Annabelle woke with a strange sensation, not fear, not cold, but a dull pressure behind her eyes, like someone staring, watching. She blinked into the darkness and turned toward the bedroom door. It was open. She remembered clearly that Lucas had closed it before bed. She reached out to wake him to find the bed beside her empty. "Lucas," she whispered. No answer. She stood, slipping on a robe and moving cautiously into the hallway. The air was different, still and dense, as though the house itself was holding its breath. She tiptoed toward the girl's room. The door was cracked open, and inside, she saw a shape, long, feminine, floating. It was standing over Lily's bed. Annabelle's breath caught in her throat. The figure was tall, impossibly tall, its feet hovering inches off the floor. Its back was hunched, arms long and limp, fingers trailing almost to the ground. Long black hair obscured its face, hanging like a veil. Annabelle couldn't scream. Her voice was stuck somewhere inside her. She stepped forward, driven by instinct, heart slamming in her chest. The figure began to turn, slowly. Its head twisted to far, to slow, and then it vanished, gone, without a sound, without a trace. Lily stirred, then opened her eyes. "Is Mama back?" she asked sleepily. Annabelle couldn't speak. The next morning, Lucas examined the room. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, nothing moved. But Annabelle knew what she had seen, and Lily's question confirmed it. Mama was still here, only Nosh had changed. Lucas called Tomas again, the former priest. "She's shifting," Tomas said, concerned. "Ghosts like her bound by emotion, they don't just vanish. They evolve, especially when you try to separate them from what they believe is theirs." "You mean Lily?" Lucas said. Tomas nodded. "She's no longer just clinging. She's becoming something else. The longer she stays, the more human she pretends to be." Pretends. She's learning, becoming smarter, stronger. Lucas felt a chill go down his spine. "What does she want now?" Tomas's expression darkened. "To replace." Later that evening, Victoria approached Annabelle as she was folding laundry. "She looks different now," Victoria said softly. Annabelle turned. "Who?" "Mama." Annabelle froze. "She doesn't crawl anymore," Victoria continued. "She walks like us. She wears dresses now. Ones like yours. And her face, it's not so scary anymore. It's almost pretty." That night, Lucas searched the house top to bottom. He checked every mirror, closet, attic beam, window lock. He couldn't shake the feeling that the figure Annabelle had seen wasn't just a haunting. It was an imitation, a growing presence, and it was studying them. The next encounter came not from Lily but from Annabelle herself. She was standing at the bathroom sink, brushing her hair. It had been a long day, and for the first time in weeks, she'd tried to relax. She hummed a quiet tune, the bathroom lit softly by a single wall light. The mirror before her began to fog, even though the room was cold. She stopped brushing. The fog thickened unnaturally fast. She wiped the glass with her hand, and behind her reflection someone else was standing. Annabelle whirled around. No one there. She turned back to the mirror. Her own face stared back, but something was wrong. Her reflection was still brushing her hair. Annabelle wasn't. She backed away slowly, heart thudding. Then the reflection smiled without her smiling, and the lights went out. She screamed. Lucas ran in, flashlight in hand. The mirror was cracked down the middle, and etched into the glass, as if by a finger, were the words, "I can be her." Lucas sat alone in the living room that night, unable to sleep. He had to protect them. But from what? Was this a ghost, a demon, something in between? Tomas had said replace. Did Mama want to become Annabelle? He opened the family photo album. He flipped through the pictures of Victoria and Lily when they were babies, Annabelle smiling, Lucas holding the girls on the front porch. It hit him that he hadn't taken any new photos since the girls came back. He flipped to the end of the album and froze. There were new photos Photos he didn't remember printing. Photos no one should have taken. The girls sleeping in their beds. Annabelle brushing her teeth. Lucas himself asleep. All of them taken from odd angles, from corners, from behind furniture, from inside closets. His hand shook as he turned the last page. The final photo was black and white. It showed Annabelle in bed, next to her mama. But this time, Mama's face wasn't twisted or hollow. It was Annabelle's face. Lucas dropped the book and stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. The photo fluttered to the floor. The next day, Lucas brought the photo album to Tomas. Tomas examined the photos in silence. Then he spoke, voice low and certain. "She's not just haunting anymore. She's inhabiting." Lucas didn't understand. "She's copying Annabelle, trying to replace her. And if she succeeds, she won't just haunt the house anymore." Lucas gripped the table. "She'll live in it." Meanwhile, strange behavior started emerging in Lily. Not like before. Now it was more subtle, more mature. She walked differently, used words that seemed borrowed. She called Annabelle Mama in a tone too adult. Once, she laughed a deep, throaty chuckle that sent chills through Annabelle's spine. And at one point, she stared at Annabelle and said, "You're not real," then walked away smiling. Annabelle didn't know how to respond. That night, Tomas began preparations for a purging ritual. Not an exorcism but something older. A binding and banishing. They lit 7 candles in the girls' bedroom, drew chalk sigils on the walls, placed belongings of the girls' blankets, toys, a photo within the circle. Mama would be drawn to them, and once she appeared they would trap her. "Do not speak to her," Tomas warned. "She will try to confuse you. Use your voice, use your love, but do not believe what she shows you." They waited. Minutes passed. The room grew cold. And then she came. Not through the walls, not from above. She walked in through the doorway, like a person, and she looked like Annabelle. Exactly. Hair, eyes, clothes, everything. Lucas stepped back, heart racing. Tomas began to chant. The false Annabelle tilted her head and spoke in Annabelle's voice. "Why are you afraid of me?" Lucas couldn't answer. "Don't you love me?" she asked. Victoria began to cry. Lily stood still, expression blank. Annabelle, the real one, stepped forward. "You're not me," she said. The false Annabelle smiled. "I'm better. I never get tired. I never cry. I'll be the mother they deserve." The candles flared. Tomas threw a pouch of ash and salt into the air. The false Annabelle screamed, her voice shifting, melting into something ancient and broken. Her face began to crack, to twist. Her body bent backward, arms flailing. She shrieked. A dull light exploded from the chalk circle. Then silence. She was gone. The room was warm again. But outside the house, deep in the trees, a shadow moved, watching, waiting. Because even grief that's banished can still find its way back. Mama, the mother that was not human. The snow returned with the dusk. Outside, trees bent under the weight of frost, their limbs swaying like thin arms trying to reach the house. Wind howled across the hills and slipped through cracks in the window frames. Inside, warmth flickered from the fireplace, but it could not banish the cold that had settled in Lucas's heart. Mama had been driven away, but not destroyed. Tomas's ritual had worked, or so they thought. The false Annabelle had been banished in a burst of blinding light. Her twisted imitation burned away by ash and chant. For the first time in weeks, the house had slept peacefully. But something still watched them. Lucas could feel it. And he wasn't alone. Victoria had begun drawing again. At first, her sketches were cheerful pictures of the family, of flowers, trees, stars. But one morning, Lucas flipped through her sketchbook and found a new page. One she hadn't shown anyone. It was a drawing of the cabin. Detailed, exact, down to the broken door and shattered windows. Inside the cabin, 2 small girls sat in the dark, huddled on a mattress, in the corner. A shape loomed, a woman twisted, floating her face a black void. Beneath the image, Victoria had written for words in neat, childish letters. "She's still in me." Lucas showed the drawing to Tomas. The former priest's face turned pale. "She's not just watching," Tomas whispered. "She left a part of herself behind." "A possession?" Lucas asked. "No, worse, an imprint." Tomas explained, "When spirits are powerful and are trauma-bound, grief-fed, they don't just haunt places, they embed. In people, in memories, in thoughts. Like a virus that waits. And in this case, Victoria was the host. She spent years with Mama. She depended on her," Tomas said gravely. "Even if Mama's gone physically, her influence may remain. Waiting, feeding, becoming something more." That night, Lucas sat on the edge of Victoria's bed, the drawing in hand. "Did you dream about her?" he asked gently. Victoria didn't answer. Instead, she reached under her pillow and pulled out another drawing. It showed the Familiukas, Annabelle, Victoria, Lily standing outside their home. But behind them, half hidden in the trees, was Mama. Her face was clearer this time. Too clear. It looked human but wasn't. Her eyes were too wide. Her mouth stretched too far. And her smile curved unnaturally upward, like it had been carved into her face. "She wants to come back," Victoria whispered. "But not as Mama anymore." Lucas felt his throat tighten. "What does she want to be?" Victoria looked up at him, eyes glossy. "She wants to be me." The next few days passed in fragments. Shadows appeared where they shouldn't. Footsteps echoed in empty rooms. And most disturbing, Victor began changing. She stopped speaking to Lily. She sat silently at the dinner table, not eating, not blinking. Once, Lucas found her in the hallway at 3 a.m., just standing, staring at the front door. "Are you sleepwalking?" he asked. Victoria didn't answer. She turned slowly to him and smiled. But it wasn't her smile. It was Mama's. Annabelle tried to intervene, gently. She played games, told stories, held Victoria tightly at night. But the girl flinched at her touch. And worse, Lily began saying strange things. "Victoria isn't Victoria anymore," she said one morning, while brushing her teeth. "What do you mean?" Annabelle asked. "She talks to Mama when no one's looking," Lily whispered. "Sometimes she talks without moving her mouth." Annabelle's skin prickled. Tomas returned with a specialist, an older woman named Sister Amelia, once a nun, now a spiritual counselor and psychic. She had worked with dozens of families haunted by entities beyond the veil. When she entered the house, she stood perfectly still for nearly 10 minutes, eyes closed, hands trembling. Then she opened her eyes and said, "There are 2 children here." Lucas nodded. She shook her head slowly. "No, I mean there are 2 souls inside the older one." They conducted a spiritual cleansing. No fire, no chanting, just light. Sister Amelia asked Victoria to sit in a circle of lit candles, holding an object from her past. Victoria chose her old stuffed birth one from the cabin. At first, everything seemed calm. Then the room turned cold. The bear began to twitch in her hands, and Victoria spoke, but not in her own voice. "Don't take me away," she whispered. Annabelle sobbed. "Please, leave her," she pleaded. Victoria raised her head, and her eyes had changed, black from edge to edge. "I kept them warm," the voice hissed. "I sang to them. I loved them. You didn't come. You let them go." Lucas stepped forward. "They were never yours." Victoria stood now, the flames of the candles bending toward her unnaturally. Her voice deepened. "I was a mother. I still am. You were broken," Sister Amelia said firmly. "You let your grief consume you. You've forgotten what it means to love." Victoria magrolled. "I never forgot. I did everything for them. I gave them warmth. I gave them family. I gave them me." Amelia drew a silver pendant from her pocket and held it up. "You are not their family. You are their jailer." Victoria screamed a sound like metal tearing, and then it was over. The candles blew out. Victoria collapsed. Her breathing slowed. Her body twitched. Annabelle rushed to her side. Lucas held her hand. And slowly, her eyes fluttered open. Clear, normal. Victoria blinked. "Is she gone?" she asked softly. No one answered. The next morning, the air in the house felt different. Warmer, quieter. Victoria seemed lighter. She laughed again, ate pancakes, played with Lily. For the first time since their return, she acted like a child. And yet there was a lingering unease. Because that night, as Lucas cleaned up the dining room, he found a drawing tucked beneath a placemat. It showed Annabelle, sitting at the kitchen table, smiling. And standing behind her, arms stretched long, hair floating, a face melting with shadows. "Mama," and underneath, scribbled in dark crayon, "I like her better." The cabin's secret: her child was never found. The image haunted Lucas long after he found it. A drawing, buried beneath the dining table placemat, scrawled in thick black crayon: Annabelle smiling at the kitchen table, and behind her, the unmistakable silhouette of Mama. The caption below it, written in trembling, childlike handwriting, chilled him. "I like her better." Victoria denied drawing it. Lily, when asked, looked away and whispered, "It wasn't us. She still draws sometimes." Lucas didn't ask who she was, because he already knew. The house had returned to a cautious normalcy. Victoria and Lily were laughing again. Meals were shared without whispers in the dark. The mirrors remained unbroken. But beneath the surface, a question pulsed like a buried heartbeat. Why was Mama still here? She had been defeated, banished, but only from the surface. Lucas felt the same way he knew when a storm was about to break. Something had been left unresolved. Something was holding her here. And it all pointed back to the place it began, the cabin. Lucas made the decision early one morning, as the mist curled through the trees outside. He would go back. He needed answers more than stories, more than rituals. He needed truth. Tomas hesitated at first. "That place is a wound," he warned. "A tear between this world and something else. Whatever you find, the right may not want to be found." But Lucas had made up his mind. "I need to understand why she chose them," he said quietly. "Why she stayed. Why she won't leave." He looked down the hallway, where the girls were playing. And what she's still waiting for. They left at dawn. Lucas, Tomas, and Sister Amelia drove in silence for over 2 hours, their car winding through snow-draped forest roads. The deeper they went, the more the trees seemed to lean inward, as if the forest itself were closing around them. When they arrived at the site, Lucas felt it instant lithe, same weight in his chest he'd felt all those years ago. The air was heavier here, the shadows darker. The cabin still stood, barely. Its walls were rotted and caved in places. The windows were little more than broken teeth in gaping sockets. The door hung by one hinge. Snow had piled against its sides, but inside, the darkness seemed untouched by time. They stepped inside. The smell hit them first, damp wood, mold, and something else, something older, like dried blood and forgotten grief. The same mattress still lay in the corner, stained and sunken. Shards of glass glittered beneath the moonlight peeking through a broken beam. Lucas walked slowly to the center of the room. "This is where she found them," he murmured. "This is where she became their mother." Tomas lit a lantern, its glow casting long shadows. She didn't just find them here. She was drawn. This place was hers long before the girls. Sister Amelia knelt near the hearth, her hands brushing aside dust and debris. "She died near here, didn't she?" she asked. Lucas nodded. The records said Edith Brennan ran into the forest after the asylum fire. She was clutching her baby. No one ever found the child's body. Silence followed. Then Amelia whispered, "What if she never let it go?" They searched the cabin room by room. In the back, Tomas discovered a rotting chest half buried under broken floorboards. With effort, they pried it open. Inside were old rags, a cracked baby bottle, and a tattered bundle wrapped in cloth. Lucas reached in and unfolded it. It was a small blanket, stiff with time, embroidered with faded letters. E. Brennan. He held it in his hands, heart pounding. She never lost her child, Amelia said. Not in her mind. That grief miscarried. Unresolved, it fed her. It made her. Tomas examined the wall nearby. Something had been scratched into the wood heap. Desperate etchings made by fingernails or broken glass. Names, words, over and over. Mama, mama, mama. And underneath, barely legible. He cries, he cries, he cries. Suddenly, Amelia stopped. Her hand hovered over a broken plank near the fireplace. Here, she whispered. Lucas knelt beside her. The floor was loose. With shaking hands, they lifted the board and found a shallow pit. Within it, bones, small, cradled in a fetal position, arms curled around a broken toy. A baby's skeleton, still wearing the remains of a tiny woolen onesie. Lucas recoiled, breath catching. Tomas crossed himself. She never left because her child never did, Amelia said softly. She couldn't find peace because she was still here, watching, protecting, waiting for someone to cry the way her child once did. Lucas wiped tears from his face. This was her grave, he said. No, Tomas corrected. This was her cradle. They called the authorities anonymously, giving coordinates and requesting a historical investigation. But they didn't wait for the response. Instead, Lucas made a quiet decision. They would bury the child properly, not leave it to officials or newspapers. He gathered what they could of the fragile remains, wrapped them gently in the old embroidered blanket, and walked deep into the wood suntal. He found a clearing where the light touched the ground. There, they dug a grave beneath a birch tree. They marked it with a simple wooden cross. No name, no birth date, just peace. That night, back at the house, something changed. Not something they could see, something they felt. The air was no longer thick. The mirrors no longer trembled with static. And for the first time in years, the wind outside didn't howl like morning. It sang. Victoria came to Lucas just after midnight. She stood at his bedroom door, her eyes wet but calm. She said, "Thank you," she whispered. Lucas sat up. Victoria smiled, faintly. She's not here anymore. She went with him. She found her baby. Tears filled Lucas's eyes. He opened his arms, and Victoria ran to him. For the first time, when he held her, she didn't flinch. The next morning, Lily ran outside in her pajamas, chasing snowflakes. Annabelle watched from the porch, wrapped in a scarf, eyes full of quiet awe. Lucas joined her, placing an arm around her shoulders. "We buried the past," he said. Annabelle leaned her head against him. "But did we bury all of it?" Lucas didn't answer, because far away, deep in the forest, the cabin still stood, ruined, empty. But its walls remembered, its floor remembered, and somewhere in the wood grain and rot, the memory of a mother's grief still echoed. Not in rage, not in darkness, but in sorrow. A lullaby carried by the trees, a whisper to the wind, a reminder that not all hauntings come from hate. Some come from love that was never allowed to let go. The doll moved when no one was there. The old Langham house stood still beneath the heavy gray sky, its crooked windows watching the surrounding woods like empty eyes. Inside, silence blanketed the narrow hallways, broken only by the occasional creak of age-old floorboards. Annabelle was the first to notice something odd. It had been 3 days since she and Lily had moved back in with their Aunt Laura, after social services found them alone in the cabin deep in the forest. Laura, overwhelmed but determined, was trying her best to give them a normal life again. But normal was a long way from here. Annabelle sat at the edge of her bed in the attic room. clutching the tattered stuffed rabbit she had brought with her from the forest cabin. Lily was playing silently with her porcelain doll, a strange, old-fashioned thing with pale cheeks, glassy eyes, and a permanent smile that seemed to wide. "Lily," Annabelle whispered, "I don't like that doll." Lily didn't respond. Her head was tilted, eyes focused on the doll's face, as if in a silent conversation. It wasn't a new habit. She'd been doing it since they got back. That night, as Laura tucked them in, she kissed both girls on the forehead. "Sleep tight, angels," she said softly, turning off the light. The room fell into darkness, except for the small nightlight glowing faintly in the corner. Midnight came. Annabelle stirred awake, her eyes flicking open. Something wasn't right. The air in the room felt heavy, cold. She sat up slowly. Lily was fast asleep in her bed. But the doll, it was sitting on the rocking chair across the room, where Laura had placed it earlier. Now, it was on the windowsill facing outward. Annabelle's stomach dropped. She got up, walked cautiously toward the doll, and picked it up. Cold to cold. She placed it gently back on the chair, not wanting to scare Lily, and returned to bed. Maybe she was imagining things. The next morning, she asked Laura about it. "I didn't move it," Laura said casually over breakfast. "You or Lily must have done it." "I didn't," Annabelle muttered. "It moved by itself." Laura smiled gently. "Sweetheart, dolls don't move by themselves." But Annabelle wasn't convinced. That evening, she placed the doll carefully in the closet and closed the door. "Stay," she whispered, not sure why she even spoke to it. She didn't want Lily to see her fear. Later that night, Annabelle woke again. The closet door was open. The doll was sitting upright on her desk, facing her. She screamed. Laura rushed upstairs, heart pounding. She flipped the light on and found Annabelle curled in her bed, crying, while Lily remained asleep, undisturbed. "What's wrong?" Laura asked, trying to console her. "The doll, it moved again. I locked it in the closet." Laura looked at the doll and frowned. Maybe Lily woke up and took it out? No, Annabelle insisted. She was asleep. Laura hesitated. Something about the doll was strange. It wasn't new. She didn't buy it. It had come with the girls' things, tucked in Lily's duffel bag. But it looked much older, like an antique, and it gave her the creeps. That night, after the girls went to sleep, Laura took the doll downstairs and locked it in the cabinet in the laundry room. 2 hours later, a soft thud echoed from the hallway. She opened her bedroom door, peering into the dark corridor. Nothing. Silence. Then a soft scraping sound like porcelain on wood made her blood run cold. It was coming from the stairs. Laura tiptoed toward the sound. As she reached the landing, she looked down and froze. The doll was on the bottom step, sitting upright, staring up at her. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Suddenly, a loud bang erupted from the laundry room. She raced down, heart hammering in her chest, and found the cabinet door hanging open, the lock still intact, but twisted, as if something had forced it open from the inside. She grabbed the doll and stuffed it into a black trash bag, tying it tightly. Then she carried it outside and threw it in the garbage bin at the edge of the driveway. When she came back inside, Annabelle was waiting at the top of the stairs. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. Laura blinked. "Done what?" "She doesn't like being thrown away." Annabelle looked down. "Mama." The word sent a chill down Laura's spine. The next morning, the trash bin was empty. No doll, no trash, nothing. As if it had never been there. That same day, Laura took the girls into town for groceries. When they returned, the front door was open, not wide, just slightly ajar. Laura knew she had locked it. They stepped inside cautiously. Everything looked normal at first, but when they entered the living room, Laura screamed. The doll was back, sitting calmly on the couch, smiling. Annabelle grabbed Lily and pulled her behind her. "She followed us." Laura didn't hesitate this time. She picked up the doll with oven mitts and stuffed it into a box, then sealed it with tape. She drove 20 miles out of town to an old antique shop she remembered from years ago. The old man behind the counter looked up as she placed the box in front of him. "I want to sell this," she said. He opened the box and immediately stiffened. His eyes narrowed. "Where did you get this?" "It came with my nieces. I think there's something wrong with it." The man said nothing for a moment. Then he carefully closed the box and placed a small crucifix on top of it. "This isn't just a doll," he whispered. "This is a vessel, a conduit." "A conduit for what?" He looked at her grimly. "For something that wants to stay close to those girls. Something that won't leave." Laura drove home in a daze. That night, as the girls slept, she searched online haunted dolls, spiritual attachments, conduits. Every thread seemed to confirm what she feared. The doll wasn't just a toy. It was connected to Mama, the entity that had raised the girls in the forest. And now she was trying to come back. The following night, Lily woke up crying. Laura rushed in. "She was here," Lily whimpered, eyes wide. "Mama was here." She sat in the chair. "What chair?" Laura asked, looking around. Lily pointed to the rocking chair in the corner. It was swaying gently back and forth, though no one had touched it. Laura sat on the floor, pulling Lily into her arms. "She can't hurt you anymore, honey." "I won't let her." But Lily wasn't convinced. "She's not trying to hurt us," she whispered. "She wants us to come back." Annabelle, standing in the doorway, looked on silently. Her hand clutched her rabbit tightly, and her eyes were filled with something that looked like guilt. "Annabelle," Laura asked. "I think I made her mad," the girl said. "I told Lily to stop talking to her. I tried to throw away the doll, but she won't let go." That night, the air in the house grew dense, thick with something unseen. Lights flickered. Shadows danced along the walls. Laura stayed awake, watching the hallway. The girl's door slightly ajar. Just after midnight, the temperature plummeted. Then soft, dragging footsteps echoed up the stairs. Laura held her breath. The bedroom door creaked open slowly, but no one was there, except the doll. It was back in Lily's bed, its face smiling wider than before. Laura stepped in, carefully picking it up. "You're not welcome here," she whispered. And then she heard it, a voice, faint and echoing, a whisper only she could hear. "They are mine." Suddenly, the doll's head turned, just slightly, enough to send Laura stumbling back. She dropped it. The lights burst. The girls screamed. And in the corner of the room, the shadows twisted. Mama had come home. A stranger arrives and sees the unthinkable. The forest was unnaturally quiet. Cold winds slithered through the branches, whispering names no one had spoken aloud in years. The cabin, still half sunken into shadows, stood like a forgotten monument at the edge of nowhere. Inside, Lily and Victoria huddled together, their tiny fingers entwined as they watched the corner of the room where the dark began. "Mama's watching," Victoria whispered. Lily nodded, her eyes never leaving the swaying curtains even though no wind touched them. Far away from this isolated nightmare, a man named Lucas Walker drove along the snaking road that cut through the woods. He was a distant relative, a cousin of the girl's father. After years abroad, he had returned to find out what had truly happened to his family. The story of the girl's disappearance had always bothered him. When he heard whispers that they had been found alive in the forest, his curiosity burned into obsession. With an envelope of half-forgotten clues and a frayed photograph of the two girls, Lucas followed the last known coordinates recorded by the search party. Everyone had claimed the girls were safe in foster care now, but rumors suggested they hadn't really left the forest. Something about the story didn't sit right. Something about the mother who wasn't their mother. The wheels of his Jeep crunched over dead leaves as he reached the edge of a clearing. He stepped out, flashlight in hand, breath fogging in the cold air. The forest felt wrong. The trees leaned in as though trying to whisper secrets he wasn't meant to hear. Then he saw it. The cabin. Its windows were covered in grime. A wooden door, crooked on its hinges, creaked gently as if it had been left ajar to welcome him or warn him away. Lucas stepped forward. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and dust and something older, something like earth that had never seen. Sunlight, the flashlight swept across the room. Broken furniture, makeshift toys, and crayon drawings of stick figures with long, twisting hair filled the walls. And then he saw the girls. Lily looked up first. Her eyes were wide and hollow, too mature for her age. "You're not supposed to be here," she said quietly. "I'm Lucas," he replied, kneeling. "I'm family. Your dad was my cousin." Victoria stared at him. "You can't take us away. Mama won't like it." Lucas frowned. "Mama, you mean your real mother?" Both girls shook their heads slowly. "She's here," Lily whispered. Suddenly, the temperature dropped. Lucas felt an invisible heaviness. The crawl of eyes on his back. His flashlight flickered. And then a sound. Something soft and wet dragging across wood. Lucas turned, his heart pounding in his ears. In the hallway behind him, a shadow detached from the ceiling, elongating into something that was once human but no longer. Mama, a shape with matted hair floating above her head, limbs that bent wrong, fingers too long. She glided rather than walked, her feet hovering inches above the floor. Her face, when visible, was pale and twisted with endless grief. Her eyes were pits of longing and pain. Lucas froze. "Mama doesn't like strangers," Victoria said from behind him. But Lucas stood his ground. "You're not real," he muttered. "You're just a story twisted by fear." Mama screeched. It was the sound of bones cracking and children crying and a wind that blew from the grave. She lunged, but Lucas reacted faster than fear. He held up a charm, a small necklace his grandmother had given him, a relic passed through generations, its origins rooted in folk belief. It burned hot in his hand. Mama recoiled with a hiss, her form shuddering like smoke caught in a vacuum. For a moment, the air cleared. The hallway returned to normal. The darkness pulled back. The girls looked terrified of him, but for him. "She won't stop," Lily warned. "You made her angry." "I came to help you," Lucas insisted. "You can't live here. You don't belong to her." "We do," Victoria said solemnly. "She saved us." That stopped Lucas cold. "She kept us warm, fed us, held us when we cried," Lily explained. "When the others left us, she stayed." Lucas tried to process it. Mama wasn't just haunting them, she'd raised them. But that didn't make her human. "Your children," Lucas said gently. "You need more than shadows and silence. You need sunlight. Friends are real life." Victoria's eyes welled with tears. "But who will love Mama if we leave?" A low, guttural moan filled the cabin. Lucas turned slowly. Mama stood at the threshold of the room, no longer lashing out but pleading. Her head tilted in a gesture that mirrored sorrow. Her translucent fingers stretched toward the girls, not to harm, but to hold. Lucas did something he never expected. He stepped aside. Mama floated forward, her form trembling with emotion. She touched Lily's cheek. The girl didn't flinch. "She doesn't want us to forget her," Lily whispered. "I won't," Victoria said, "ever." And then Mama turned her gaze to Lucas. Her expression shifted, less hostile now, just tired. Lucas swallowed hard and nodded. "I'll protect them, I swear." The air grew warmer. For a moment, the cabin shimmered with light from nowhere, like dawn remembered. Mama's figure flickered, her hair swirling like wind through willow branches. Her body dissolved into tendrils of shadow that curled around the girls, then vanished into the wooden beams of the house itself. Silence. Lucas let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's go home." The girls hesitated. Then slowly, they stepped out into the light with him. Their eyes adjusted to the real world with caution, their hands still tightly gripping his. As they walked toward the Jeep, Lucas glanced back. The cabin looked smaller somehow, less threatening. But when he turned away, a final breeze whispered through the trees. A lullaby. Mama's lullaby. Lucas did what he promised. He brought the girls into his homemade a world of sunlit breakfasts, soft beds, and laughter. But strange things followed them. Sometimes, toys moved on their own. Drawings of Mama would appear on the back of homework pages. And at night, the girls would talk to the shadows by their window. "She's just checking in," Lily would say. "She's lonely sometimes," Victoria added. Lucas tried to ignore it. But one night, he found something impossible. A hand-drawn picture taped to the fridge made by Victoria. It showed 3 figures, the 2 girls, smiling, and Mama, behind them, watching with her sad, hollow eyes. In the corner, scrawled in crayon, were 4 words: "She never left us." The nightmare of the foster parent. Lucas Walker had never been the type to believe in ghosts. He had seen war zones, natural disasters, and human cruelty, but nothing prepared him for the reality of what now lived in his home. Or rather, what never left it. The girls Lily and Victoria seemed to adjust quickly on the surface. They bathed, learned how to use the microwave, and even picked out new clothes from the local thrift store. Their laughter began to return, though it was often quiet, private, and fleeting. They still whispered to the corners of rooms and slept with their doors wide open. Lucas thought love, time, and therapy might heal whatever damage had been done. But love wasn't enough when shadows listened through the walls. It began slowly. One morning, Lucas woke to find the hallway light flickering even though he had just changed the bulb. At first, he blamed faulty wiring. Then came the smell, damp earth and decaying wood creeping in beneath the doorframes at night. Sometimes, it lingered just outside the girls' bedroom. The real nightmare started on a Sunday. Lucas had fallen asleep on the couch, drained from work and from watching over the girls who refused to sleep, unless the hallway light was left on. He stirred at around 2:33 a.m., to the sound of humming. A lullaby, not one he recognized. It came from the kitchen. He rose slowly. The house felt colder than it should. The thermostat read 72 F, but his breath curled in the air like smoke. As he stepped into the hallway, the air turned heavier, like he was walking through water. In the kitchen, every cabinet was wide open. Plates, cups, and cutlery lay shattered on the floor. In the center stood Victoria. She was barefoot, her eyes closed, head tilted upward as if listening to someone above her. "Victoria," Lucas called. She opened her eyes slowly. "Shh," she said. "Mama's teaching me a song." Lucas blinked. "Where's Lily?" "She's with her," the girl whispered. Suddenly terrified, Lucas ran to the girl's room. Lily wasn't in bed, but the closet door was slightly ajar. He approached it slowly, hand trembling as he reached for the knob. Before he could open it, the door creaked wide on its own. Inside sat Lily, knees to chest, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "She says you're going to send us away," she muttered. "No," Lucas said gently, kneeling. "I would never do that. She doesn't believe you. She thinks you're lying, like the others." "What others?" Lily didn't respond. She only pointed behind him. Lucas turned, but no one was there. That night, he didn't sleep. By Monday, things worsened. The girls stopped eating breakfast unless Lucas left the room. They kept saying Mama doesn't like when we're too happy without her. Their school counselor, Ms. Danner, called Lucas after the first week back in class. She said the girls were drawing disturbing images during art. Mostly a tall, floating woman with long black hair, she explained. She's always behind them, watching. Lucas tried to explain, but what could he say? That the ghost of a maternal spirit who had raised the girls in the woods was now invading their suburban home? The final straw came 3 nights later. Lucas dreamed that, if it could be called that. He stood in the old cabin, though he hadn't returned since rescuing the girls. Moonlight poured through cracks in the roof. The floorboards groaned under his feet. A sound came from the shadow, sweat and crawling. He turned. Mama stood before him. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with malice, but sorrow. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Just a guttural sound that scraped the inside of his brain. Lucas couldn't move. She stepped forward and gently touched his chest. That's when he woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. A sharp pain burned across his torso. He looked down. For long scratches ran from his collarbone to his ribs. They weren't bleeding, but they were real, and they hadn't been there the night before. The next morning, Lucas booked an appointment with a psychic, not because he believed in them, but because he didn't know what else to do. Her name was Elena, a quiet woman in her 60s with a reputation for clearing unwanted guests. She entered the house without speaking and paused at the doorway. "She's still here," Elena whispered. "You can sense her. She's not hiding. She thinks this is her home." Lucas showed her the girl's room. Elena looked around, frowning deeply. "They've accepted her," she murmured. "They see her as a protector. That's a powerful bond. Dangerous, even if it started with love. Can you make her leave?" Elena sighed. "Spirits like her don't listen to threats. She's not vengeful, she's attached. She believes that girls belong to her, and that you're stealing them away." Lucas clenched his fists. "So what do I do?" "You have to help her let go," Elena said softly. "Not force her out. Convince her. Speak to her. With the girl's help." Lucas hesitated. "And if she refuses?" Elena looked at him, her expression grave. "Then this house becomes hers too." That night, Lucas sat with the girls on the living room floor. The fireplace crackled. The lights dimmed, unprompted. He held their hands. "I want to talk to Mama," he said. Lily blinked. "Why?" "Because I need her to hear me. I don't want to fight her. I want her to see we love you too." For a long moment, neither child spoke. Then Victoria nodded. "She listens best when we sing her lullaby." So they began to hum, low and soft. The air grew colder. Shadows stirred near the walls. Then she appeared. Mama. Her form hovered near the ceiling, draped in sorrow and windless hair. Her limbs floated gently, her face half lit by the fire. Lucas stood, heart pounding. "I know you love them," he said. "I know you protected them when no one else did. You kept them alive." Mama tilted her head. Her hair shifted like dark waves. "But they're safe now. They can grow here, learn, laugh, and you can rest." She made no sound, just a low whimper so mournful it twisted Lucas's gut. Victoria stepped forward. "It's okay, Mama," she said. "We'll always love you. But we need to live now." "We won't forget you," Lily added, tears welling in her eyes. Mama drifted closer to the girls. She reached other form, trembling as her fingers hovered just above their hair. Then she paused. The firelight flickered, and for the first time, Lucas saw her face clearly. Not terrifying, not monstrous, just sad, tired. Mama's eyes softened. She backed away slowly, drifting toward the hallway. Her form shimmered, then faded like fog under sunlight. The air warmed. The silence was gentle. And just like that, she was gone. The girls cried that night, not from fear but grief. Lucas held them, whispering that they would be okay, that Mama had finally found peace. But even in the days that followed, things weren't perfect. Sometimes they still heard footsteps when no one walked. Sometimes the music box Mama had left behind would open and play on its own. And sometimes, in dreams, the girls saw her standing far away, smiling faintly, then turning to walk into the woods that once raised them. Lucas didn't try to erase her memory. He kept a picture of the old cabin above the fireplace, a reminder that sometimes love comes in the strangest, darkest forms. And even in the world of nightmares there can be a mother's touch. The nightmare of the foster parent. Lucas Walker had always believed that love could fix anything. He thought bringing Lily and Victoria into his home would offer them healing, a new beginning. But it didn't take long before his house, once warm and filled with hope, began to change. The girls were polite and quiet. Too quiet. They never laughed too loudly or argued. Never made a mess. Lucas thought they were simply well-behaved, but something felt off. They always seemed to be waiting for something or someone. One night, Lucas came home late from work. The house was unusually dark when he entered. The kitchen lights flickered, and the hallway was ice cold. As he stepped in, the floor creaked not beneath his own feet, but from the room above. He called out, "Lily, Victoria?" No answer. When he climbed the stairs, he found the girls huddled together on the bed in their shared room. They looked up at him with wide, pale eyes. "She's here," Victoria whispered. Lucas sat down slowly, trying not to let his anxiety show. "Who, sweetheart?" "Mama," Lily said. "She follows us when we're sad." Lucas had tried to convince himself that Mama was gone, that whatever had clung to them in that forest cabin had faded when they left. But now, inside his own house, it was returning and growing stronger. It started with the small things. Lucas would find wet footprints leading from the bathroom when no one had showered. The girls' bedroom light would turn on by itself at exactly 2:33 a.m. The same time he'd heard the lullaby during that first night, and the music box, found inside one of the girls' forest-drawn bags, would play even when its crank hadn't been touched. Lucas tried reasoning, tried denying. He burned sage, sprinkled salt across doorframes, even installed new locks, though he knew this wasn't a problem that could be fixed with bolts and chains. Then the dreams came. He dreamed of the cabin's rotting wood, the wind howling through broken windows, of Mama, her limbs impossibly long, gliding through corridors soaked in darkness. She would reach out in silence, never touching but always watching. One night, Lucas woke to find himself standing in the hallway, barefoot, staring at the girls' room door. He had no memory of how he got there, no idea why his hands were freezing and covered in dirt. Something was inside him now. The next day, Lucas scheduled a therapist appointment for himself. He needed to understand if stress and sleeplessness were warping his mind. But just before he left, he caught Victoria staring into the hallway mirror. "Sweetie," he asked. She didn't answer. He approached, and only when he looked into the mirror did he realize something was terribly wrong. Victoria's reflection wasn't looking back at him. It was looking past him. Lucas turned instant lino one there, but the air behind him was cold enough to burn his skin. "Don't worry," Victoria said quietly, still facing the mirror. "Mama doesn't want to hurt you. She just thinks you might forget us." The therapist, Dr. Elaine Ramirez, was a no-nonsense woman with gray-streaked hair and a grounded presence. She listened patiently as Lucas told her everything, how he found the girls, what they believed, what he believed. When he was finished, she didn't laugh, didn't mock. Instead, she leaned forward and said something that chilled him. "Spirits can bind themselves to children when trauma runs deep," she explained. "And sometimes, the protector they create isn't imaginary, it's a form of survival." "So, you think Mama is a trauma projection?" "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe something more. Either way, if the girls believe she's real, that belief becomes a bridge. A bridge to what? To wherever she is." Lucas left the session feeling worse than when he entered. That night, the nightmare returned. But it wasn't a dream. Lucas woke to the sound of crying. Not the girls. A woman. He stepped into the hallway and saw a shadow at the far end. Long hair hanging like vines. Head tilted, arms open wide. "Mama," he said aloud before he could stop himself. The figure drifted forward. He couldn't move. Her face emerged from the dark ashen, eyes hollow, lips split into a sorrowful smile. And then she vanished. Lucas dropped to the floor, gasping for breath, heart racing. He checked the girls. They were asleep, unharmed. But beside their bed was a new drawing, a picture of Mama and Lucas. But in the picture, Mama wasn't angry. She was holding his hand. The following day, Lucas met with a social worker named Miss Chan. She had followed up on an anonymous report claiming Lucas was unfit to care for the girls. He was stunned. It had done everything to keep them safe. Miss Chan interviewed the girls privately. When she returned, she looked troubled. "They keep mentioning someone named Mama," she said. When I asked where she was, Victoria said, "She lives in the hallway now." Lucas didn't try to lie. He told the truth. Not everything, but enough. Miss Chan gave him a strange look, one part empathy, one part worry. "I'll file my report," she said, "but I think you need outside help. Not just for the girls, for you too." He knew she meant well, but he also knew the system didn't understand spirits. Later that evening, the girls prepared for bed. Lucas stood outside their room, listening as they talked to someone. He peeked in. Both sat facing the window, whispering. "Mama says she's tired," Lily murmured. "She says she misses the trees," Victoria replied. Lucas stepped in. "Girls, is Mama here?" They nodded. "I want to talk to her," he said. Victoria turned, serious. "You have to mean it. She won't come if you don't mean it." Lucas sat down, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Mama, I know you're watching. I know you think you're protecting them, but I'm here now. I'll love them, keep them safe. You don't have to stay anymore." The room grew cold, so cold that frost laced the edges of the window. And then, she appeared, not as a terrifying force, but as something sad, something faded. Her form hovered near the ceiling, her hair curled around her shoulders, her hands, long and skeletal, trembled in the air. She looked at the girls first, then at Lucas, and in the faintest, broken voice, she spoke. "Don't let them forget me." Lucas nodded. "Never." Mama drifted downward, passing through the bed, through the floor, and was gone. The frost melted. The girls both let out slow breaths, like they'd been holding something for years. For weeks after that, the house felt peaceful, warm, safe. But some things never truly end. One morning, Lucas found a small drawing taped to the fridge. It showed Mama in a forest, surrounded by birds, her eyes closed peacefully. Beneath it were four words: "She sleeps under trees." That night, Victoria placed a wildflower by her window. "For Mama," she whispered. Lucas didn't stop her, because he had learned something important. Some ghosts aren't evil. Some haunt out of love. And even nightmares, sometimes, are born from the deepest kind of care. You must stay with Mama. Despite everything that had happened, Lucas thought the storm had passed. The girls smiled more often. They played in the yard. They even began to call him Dad. The drawings of Mama had stopped. The cold spots vanished. And for the first time in weeks, Lucas slept soundly. It was as if Mama had finally accepted the other children no longer belonged in the dark. But grief, when twisted by love, doesn't disappear. It waits. And on a night when the sky cracked with thunder and rain poured like morning, Mama returned. That evening, Lucas tucked Lily and Victoria into bed. They were curled up together, whispering stories beneath the blanket. "You don't have to be afraid," Lucas said gently. "You're safe here." Victoria looked at him. "We know." Lily nodded. "But sometimes she gets lonely." Lucas paused. "Mama, she's quiet now," Lily whispered. "But when it storms, she remembers." He didn't understand what they meant. Not yet. At 3:07 a.m., the bedroom door creaked open. Lucas sat up instantly. Lightning lit the room for a split second, and in the flash, he saw a tall shadow at the end of the hall, unmoving, watching. He rubbed his eyes, but when the next bolt struck, the hallway was empty. He got up and walked toward the girls' room. The floor felt damp. The air tasted like soil. He turned the doorknob slowly. The room was empty. The beds were cold. He spun around, and there she was, Mama, hovering in the air, inches above the carpet, her form more solid than ever before, her eyes hollow with longing, and in her arms, Victoria. The girl was limp, her eyes closed, but not unconscious. She was listening, eyes fluttering in a trance. Mama, Lucas breathed. Let her go. The spirit stared at him, her face twisting not with rage, but desperation. She clutched Victoria tighter. She wants to come home, Mama whispered in a voice like wind through dead trees. Lucas stepped forward. This is her home. She's mine, the spirit hissed. She was cold, hungry, alone. I held her when no one else would. You weren't there. Lucas held up his hands. You're right. I wasn't. But I'm here now, and they need to move on. Tears ran down Mama's translucent face. She promised, she wept, she said she would stay. Suddenly, Lily ran in from the hallway. Mama, stop, she shouted. Mama turned to her. You said we could live, Lily cried. You said we were free. You're mine, Mama sobbed. You belong to me. Victoria stirred in her arms. I love you, she whispered. But I can't stay with you forever. Mama's body quivered. Her shadow twisted and stretched across the walls, flickering like firelight. The room pulsed with supernatural energy. Picture frames fell. The lights exploded in sparks. The house shook. You must stay with Mama, she shrieked. Lucas lunged forward. The moment his hand touched Victoria, an invisible force threw him across the room. He hit the wall hard, dazed, ears ringing. Mama's form expanded, her arms elongating as though stretching across worlds. Lily cried, You told us we were your children, and real mothers let their children grow. Mama stopped. The words echoed in the room, louder than thunder. For a long, agonizing second, everything stood still. And then Mama wept, not in fury, in heartbreak. Her arms lowered. Victoria slid gently to the floor, dazed but unharmed. Lucas pulled both girls into his arms, shielding them as Mama hovered silently. I don't want to disappear, she said. If they forget me, I'll be nothing. Lily stepped forward. We won't forget you, never. Victoria nodded, wiping her eyes. You're part of us. Mama drifted backward. Her form flickered, grew thin, transparent. I loved you like my own, she whispered. We know, Lily said, but you have to let go. Mama looked at them one last time and smiled, a soft, tired smile. And then she was gone, not vanished in fury, but lifted. The air warmed instantly. The silence was clean. Morning came quietly. Sunlight poured through the broken windows. Lucas called a repair service and school counselor, but more importantly, he made pancakes. The girls laughed, spilled syrup, and argued about which cartoon to watch. Normal, human, alive. Later that day, Lucas took them both to the edge of the woods, the same place where the cabin had once stood. All that remained now was moss, trees, and silence. Victoria placed a paper flower on the earth. She loved us in the only way she knew how, she whispered. Lily placed a drawing beside the three figures, her, Victoria, and Mama standing together under a tree. Lucas placed a stone. She'll never be forgotten, he promised. Back home, things weren't perfect. Sometimes the music box would still play, even though it had no batteries. Sometimes the girls would still whisper goodnight, Mama before bed. And sometimes when Lucas walked past the mirror, he thought he saw a silhouette, watching. But he never felt afraid again, because Mama wasn't haunting them. She was remembering them, just like they remembered her. The mystery of the woman's death. After the last encounter with Mama, the haunting ceased. The shadows no longer shifted when no one moved, and the cold patches in the house became nothing more than childhood memory. Yet, for Lucas Walker, something about it remained unresolved. The girls were healing, slowly but surely, Lily began writing stories. Victoria joined a painting class. They stopped speaking to corners of the room or waking up in tears. But they still sometimes drew pictures of the woman they once called Mama, not monstrous, but soft and grieving. One evening, while organizing a pile of old boxes in the attic, Lucas stumbled upon a leather-bound journal with a cracked spine. It didn't belong to him. He hadn't noticed it before. He dusted it off and opened the first page. The handwriting was uneven, as though it had been written in a hurry, perhaps with shaking hands. October 12, 1959. They've taken my baby. They say I'm not well, but I know what I saw. The cliff called to her. It wasn't me. Lucas froze. This wasn't fiction. It was the voice of a mother. Intrigued and unsettled, Lucas sat down and read deeper. The journal spanned several months of entries, some lucid and warm, others erratic and fragmented. It belonged to a woman named Edith Lambert, a name unfamiliar to Lucas. She had once lived in the same rural town, in a house near the old cliffs beyond the forest where locals rarely ventured anymore. Her story, scribbled between tea stains and madness, unfolded in scattered fragments. Edith had a daughter, baby Clara, but one cold winter night, the child vanished from her crib. Edith insisted she'd been taken by something from the woods, something that watched them, but no one believed her. Police records, based on what Lucas could gather from the journal, claimed Edith had wandered into the snow in a daze. Neighbors said she was seen near the cliff's edge with the baby in her arms. Clara was never found. Edith was arrested, then institutionalized. She was later reported dead. Jumped from the third floor, she had written days before. But I didn't fall. I was pulled. The next morning, Lucas brought the journal to Miss Chan, the social worker who had been following the girl's case. This could be Mama, he said. The woman the girls saw, the spirit. Miss Chan, skeptical but open-minded, reviewed the book and promised to look into any historical records matching Edith Lambert's name. Within 2 days, she returned with more than either of them had expected. Edith Lambert lived on the outskirts of town, she explained. She was never married. The child was hers alone. When the girl disappeared, they blamed Edith. She was declared unfit schizophrenic. The case was closed without much investigation. Lucas asked the obvious question. What if she wasn't mad? Miss Chen hesitated. It's possible the trauma created something else, something supernatural. Maybe Mama was born from Edith's grief. The mystery deepened. That night, Lucas sat with Lily and Victoria. He showed them the photo Miss Chan had dug up from old archives. A black and white picture of Edith. The moment they saw her, both girls gasped. That's Mama, Victoria said quietly, before she got sad. Lily stared at the picture. She had a baby. Lucas nodded. Her name was Clara. She disappeared. People said Edith marred her, but I don't think she did. Victoria touched the journal, her eyes wide. Is that why she needed us? Because she lost her real baby? Suddenly, everything made sense. The protectiveness, the anger, the desperate clinging to Lily and Victoria. They weren't just her children. They were replacements for the one she lost. Lucas needed answers. He needed closure. So he drove out to the cliffs Edith once called home. It was a long, winding route. Trees leaned over the road like ancient sentinels, their branches creaking as if to whisper secrets lost to time. At the edge of the cliffs, he found the foundation of what was once a home. The ruins were little more than crumbling stone and wildflowers now. But beneath the surface, something heavy remained. Lucas wandered through the remains, stopping near an overgrown corner where a rusted crib sat, half buried in earth. It hadn't been touched in decades. Suddenly, the air shifted. A cold breeze cut across his neck, though the sun was high. And in that moment, he saw her again. Mama, but not as the shadowy figure from his nightmares. This time, she appeared as a woman, pale, young, beautiful. Though her eyes held centuries of sorrow, she wore a thin white dress, her hair tied loosely behind her. She didn't speak. She only stared at the crib. Lucas stepped closer. "I know what happened," he said gently. "They took Clara from you, or something did. But your story was never heard. You didn't get peace." Her lips quivered. Tears welled in her hollow eyes. "You tried to love again," Lucas continued. "With Lily and Victoria. You protected them. But they need to live now, and so do you." The woman stared at him, as if deciding whether to believe. Then she did something unexpected. She turned and pointed toward the edge of the cliff. Lucas hesitated and followed. At the edge, nestled between two old stones, was a small wooden box shrouded by time. He pried it open carefully. Inside was a silver locket. When he clicked it open, he found a photo infant wrapped in a wool blanket. Clara, the only memory Edith had left of her daughter. Lucas looked back, but the woman was gone. That evening, he brought the locket home. He placed it in a glass frame on the mantel. The girls didn't speak, but when they looked at it, they both smiled softly. "She's resting now," Lily whispered. "She found her way," Victoria added. And in that quiet room, for the first time, Lucas felt the house breathe. Weeks passed. Lucas returned to work. The girls started new classes. The music box never played again. The cold never returned. But the framed locket stayed on the mantel, a reminder of a woman whose love became something otherworldly, and whose tragedy nearly went untold. One night, while tucking the girls in, Victoria asked, "Do you think Clara's okay now?" Lucas thought for a moment. "I think maybe she's with her mother now, somewhere better." Lily smiled. She waited a long time. Lucas kissed their foreheads. "Some love lasts longer than time," he said. And as he turned out the light, he heard a soft sigh just once. Not from fear, not from sorrow, but peace. The forest remembers. Months passed. The strange events, the hauntings, the shadows that once danced at the edge of vision gone. Lucas's home was now just that. A home. Lily and Victoria were thriving. They laughed without hesitation, slept through the night, and made friends at school. The trauma, though still etched in their memories, no longer defined their days. But peace, Lucas learned, doesn't mean silence. It means something deeper, a stillness beneath which the past sometimes stirs. It was late autumn when it stirred again. The forest behind their neighborhood had always been a place the girls avoided. Lucas, respecting their fear, never pushed them. But one day, during a class field trip with school, Victoria's group wandered near its edge. That night, she came home shaken. "She called me," Victoria whispered as Lucas helped her with her shoes. "Who?" he asked. "Mama," Lily asked quietly. Victoria shook her head. "No," she said, "not Mama, someone else." That night, Lucas awoke to the sound of something tapping lightly on the bedroom window. He stood, opened the curtain, and saw nothing but trees swaying in the wind. The next morning, he found something peculiar on the porch, a bundle of dried wildflowers tied with string, and a note scribbled in a child's handwriting. "She's not the only one buried in the forest." Lucas stared at the message. Someone had written it. Someone who knew. But who? He returned to the attic, pulling out Edith Lambert's old journal. He flipped to the last page. A corner had been folded, hiding something glued inside. He peeled it open and found a small, faded map, a rough sketch drawn in charcoal. It showed a cabin, the cliffs, and an area deep in the forest marked only with an X. He made copies of the map and brought it to Miss Chan. "I think there's something Gersemian buried out there," Lucas said. "Something Edith knew about, but never told." Miss Chan raised her brow. "Lucas, the state already ruled Edith's death accidental. They closed her file." "I'm not trying to reopen the case," he said. "But the forest, it's not finished with us yet." Against her better judgment, Miss Chan agreed to join him and the girls on a short hike. With the map in hand, They reached the edge of the old woods. It was quieter than Lucas remembered. Too quiet. Even birdsong seemed to vanish as they stepped beneath the trees. They followed the map, the path winding like memory. The forest floor was thick with fallen leaves. After nearly an hour, they reached the marked spot. Nothing seemed unusual. Just trees, roots, and silence. But Victoria pointed to a shallow patch of earth. "There," she said. "It feels like her." Lucas knelt down and cleared some brush. The soil beneath was darker, wetter. He dug with his hands. Then with a small shovel he brought. 10 minutes in, he hit something hard. A wooden box. Miss Chan helped him lift it carefully. It was old, rotten at the corners, but intact. Inside, wrapped in cloth and paper, was a skeleton no larger than a toddler. Lucas's breath caught. Miss Chan gasped. This is a child." Victoria whispered, "It's Clara." Lily stepped back, eyes wide. "I think Mama buried her here," she said. She didn't want anyone to find her. Not because she was guilty, because she was protecting her from whatever took her. They called the authorities. The remains were tested, and though DNA confirmation was inconclusive due to decay, clothing fragments matched those reported missing decades ago. The case reopened, and history began to rewrite itself. Local news covered the story of Edith Lambert's innocence. New details surfaced. A neighbor had once reported seeing someone in an unknown manner at Edith's house. The night Clara vanished, that lead was never pursued. With Clara's remains found so far from the house, it cast doubt on the original assumptions. Edith was no longer a ghost story. She was a mother wronged. And the forest was a graveyard of forgotten truths. The discovery brought an unexpected shift in the girls. They began drawing again, but this time, not just of Mama. They drew Clara, a little girl, always smiling, holding a locket. Victoria explained, "She visits us in dreams now, not scary, just quiet." Lucas asked, "What does she say?" "She says thank you." But the forest still wasn't done. One night, while Lily slept, she began to speak aloud. Lucas rushed to her side, gently shaking her awake. She looked up, confused. "She said she's cold," Lily mumbled. "Clara?" Lucas asked. Lily nodded. "She doesn't want to be alone again." Lucas hesitated and went to the mantel, where Clara's framed locket still sat. He removed the glass and took out the locket. The next day, he returned to the forest with the girls. They placed the locket where Clara's remains had been found. As they stood together, a warm breeze stirred the trees, even though the sky was gray. Victoria whispered, "She's not alone now." The forest grew quieter in the weeks that followed. Lucas still kept Edith's journal on the bookshelf, now worn from the girls flipping through it. And every once in a while, when the wind howled just right, Lucas would hear a sound in the trees. Not crying, not screaming, but humming. A lullaby, one that no longer mourned but remembered. On the 1-year anniversary of the discovery, the town unveiled a small memorial near the cliffside. A plaque read, "To Edith Lambert and Clara, a mother and daughter lost to silence. Now heard, now home." The girls placed wildflowers at the base. Victoria smiled and whispered, "We kept our promise, Mama." Lucas looked out over the woods that had once been filled with fear. Now, it simply looked like what it always had been. A place of memory. A place where grief became love. Where the dead didn't haunt but waited to be heard. And they were. The last visit. It had been almost 2 years since Lucas Walker had first opened his door to Lily and Victoria. 2 years since he unknowingly welcomed not just 2 orphan sisters, but the ghost of a mother whose love refused to die. A lot had changed. The girls were doing well in school. They laughed easily now, no longer flinching at shadows or whispering to empty rooms. Lucas had started a new job teaching art at a local community center. His life, once haunted by sorrow and silence, now echoed with joy, music, and warmth. But every story, especially those told by ghosts, needs an ending. And Mama's story had one last chapter. It began on a cold morning in December. The girls had gone to a sleepover. The house was quiet. Lucas sat by the fireplace reading a book when he heard it. A knock at the front door. 3 gentle knocks. When he opened it, no one was there. But resting on the doormat was a single object. The music box. The same box that had vanished months ago when they buried Clara's locket. Lucas picked it up with trembling hands. It wasn't playing, but he could feel it hum faintly, as if energy still pulsed inside. He brought it in, set it on the mantel, and waited. That night, it played on its own. No winding, no touch, just a melody, soft and slow. Lucas listened, a chill running through him. Not fear, something else, an invitation. The next morning, Lily and Victoria returned. As soon as they saw the music box, both girls stopped. "She's coming," Lily said. Victoria nodded. One more time. Lucas felt something shift in the air, as if the house was gently exhaling. "What does she want?" he asked. "She wants to say goodbye," Victoria replied. "For real this time." That evening, they prepared, not with fear, but with care. Victoria set the box in the center of the living room floor. Lily lit 3 candles. Lucas turned off all the lights. Together, they sat, waiting. And just after midnight, she came. Mama didn't enter with thunder or wind. She simply appeared. A tall, shadow-like woman with hair drifting like mist, eyes deep with grief but softer now. Gentler. She stood in the corner of the room, watching them. Lucas stood slowly. "Mama." She didn't speak, but her eyes turned to Lily and Victoria. The girls walked forward without hesitation. Victoria held out her hand. "We're okay now." "We love you," Lily added, "but it's time." Mama lowered her head, the shadows of her form flickering. Lucas took a step forward. "You were never evil," he said. "You were just lost. But you found them, and you helped them survive." Mama looked at him. Then, something remarkable happened. Her form began to change. The swirling shadows faded. Her limbs shortened. Her face became clearer. No longer the spirit of sorrow, but the woman from the photo, Edith Lambert. She smiled, truly smiled. And in that moment, her voice came, fragile but whole. "Thank you for being their father." Lucas felt tears burn his eyes. "You were their mother," he said. Mama turned back to the girls one last time, and whispered, "Be brave." Then she stepped backward into the darkness, and was gone. This time, for good. The candles flickered and died. The music box clicked shut, and the air felt still. Not haunted, not heavy, just peaceful. Lucas looked at the girls. They were crying but smiling too. "She found her way," Victoria whispered. "She let go," Lily added. They all sat in silence, not because they were afraid, but because they knew the story was truly over. The next day, Lucas drove out to the cliffside with the girls. Snow covered the ground, muffling their steps. They stood at the memorial plaque, where the wildflowers had long since withered under frost. Victoria pulled something from her coat pocket. It was a small, handmade charm woven from red thread and dried leaves. "She would have liked this," she said, placing it at the base of the plaque. Lily held Lucas's hand. "She saved us, even when she scared us." Lucas nodded. "She loved you the only way she could." Months passed, then a year, then 2. The music box never played again. The drawings of Mama were replaced with school posters, art projects, and bright photographs. Lucas adopted the girls legally. Their last names changed, but not their memories, because memory is its own kind of ghost, and theirs was a kind one. On Lily's 15th birthday, she stood at the fireplace, now adorned with holiday lights and handmade ornaments. She turned to Lucas. "Do you think Clara found her?" she asked. Lucas didn't hesitate. "Yes, I think they're together." And do you think Mama is still watching? He looked out the window at the snowy trees. No, he said gently. I think she finally found peace. Victoria became an artist. She painted forests filled with light, children running in sunbeams, a tall figure watching from the trees but never stepping forward. Lily wrote stories, some happy, some strange, all filled with longing and love, and ghosts that whispered through walls but meant no harm. Lucas kept the journal of Edith Lambert in a drawer, alongside a photo of her and Claire rested from old negatives found in the county archive. Every so often, he read it again and remembered. One spring afternoon, Victoria came home from school holding an envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten, from a man named Thomas Rivers. He was in his 70s, a former groundskeeper who had worked in the area near the cliffs long ago. He had seen Edith Lambert with her baby. He had seen someone else, to a stranger near her house the night Clara disappeared. He hadn't spoken up then, afraid, unsure. But now, he wanted them to know. She wasn't crazy, the letter said. She was just alone, and scared, and right. Victoria folded the letter slowly. She was never a monster. No, Lucas agreed. She was a mother who was silenced, but not forgotten, Lily said. The forest is quiet now. No whispers, no shadows that don't belong. Just trees, wind, and a family that remembers. The end of the story. Years passed. Seasons turned over the memory of the forest like pages in a worn book. The house was no longer haunted, but filled with music, laughter, and warm dinners. Yet even as the years went by, the story of Mama remained a part of the family. It wasn't spoken about every day, but it was never forgotten. Victoria turned 18 first. She received a scholarship to an art college in the city. Her paintings, often filled with deep forests, long shadows, and bright glimmers of hope, began gaining attention. When asked what inspired her art, she would simply say, "A woman who loved too much to let go." Lily followed close behind, her passion for writing growing into something beautiful. Her short stories won local awards. Her characters often encountered ghosts, not of the terrifying kind, but of the kind that lingered from love, regret, and protection. She never used real names, but those who knew her knew the truth behind the words. Lucas aged more quietly, his hair grayed, his steps slowed, but the pride he carried never dulled. He had not only raised a girl, had helped carry a spirit's sorrow into the light. One chilly autumn morning, Lily returned home for a weekend visit. She and Lucas walked through the old neighborhood trail. The air smelled of pine and memory. As they reached the edge of the forest, Lily stopped. "Can we go in?" she asked. Lucas hesitated. "You haven't wanted to for years." "I know, but it feels right." Together, they stepped beneath the canopy. The trees were tall and still, the ground soft with fallen leaves. They followed the old path to where Clara's remains had once been buried. Now, it was marked with a simple stone and a circle of wildflowers the town replanted every spring. Lily knelt beside it. "She would have been my age," she whispered. Lucas said nothing. He just watched her with quiet reverence. Then Lily took something from her coat pocket, a small, hand-bound book, its cover painted with watercolor trees, the title written in soft cursive. "For Mama. I wrote it for her," Lily said. "It's the story, all of it, from the beginning, the forest, the cabin, the music box, everything." Lucas gently placed a hand on her shoulder. She would have loved that. Lily stood and tucked the book beneath the stone, sealed in plastic, protected from time. "She didn't just haunt us," she said. "She helped shape us. We're part of her story. And now she's part of ours." That night, back at the house, the wind picked up. It howled through the chimney the way it used to, but this time, Lucas didn't feel dread. He sat alone by the fire, looking at the empty mantel where the music box once stood. He closed his eyes, and then, just for a moment, he felt her, a presence, warm, watching, and a voice not heard with ears, but felt in the bones. Thank you. When he opened his eyes, the room was still, but a feather had drifted down onto the coffee table. White, weightless. At Victoria's college graduation, she presented her senior project, a large-scale painting titled The Woman in the Trees. It depicted a tall, ethereal woman in a tattered dress, her hair like mist, holding two children close in a forest lit by morning sun. Her expression was not monstrous but peaceful, protective, human. The audience stood in silence, then applause, then tears. Victoria told no one the full story, but in her heart, she knew she had given Mama what she never had in life: understanding. 5 years later, Lily published her first novel. It hit bestseller lists across the country. The story followed two sisters and a grieving spirit who called herself Mama, a woman born of sorrow and love. It was marketed as horror, but readers called it something else. It made me cry. I've never read a ghost story so full of heart. It reminded me that grief and love are two sides of the same coin. Lily dedicated the book to the woman who never stopped loving, the man who taught us to heal, and the sister who painted us into the light. Lucas never remarried. He never needed to. He had built a family not from blood, but from choice, sacrifice, and love. On his 70th birthday, the girls threw him a party. Old friends, neighbors, and even Miss Chan attended. In the center of the decorations was a painting of the old forestand. Just barely visible in the trees was a tall silhouette with a soft smile. Most guests didn't notice, but Lucas did, and he smiled back. Years later, after Lucas passed peacefully in his sleep, Lily and Victoria returned to the forest once more. They carried with them two things: a wooden box containing Lucas's ashes and the original music box, long silent but still whole. At the base of the memorial stone, they dug a small hole and placed the box inside. Beside it, they buried the music box. Then Lily whispered, "We're all home now." Victoria nodded, tears falling down her cheeks. Let the forest remember. And it did. Today, children walk the forest trails near that clearing. Some say they feel a breeze that smells like lavender. Others claim they hear a music box playing softly when they pass near the stone. Locals speak of the lady in the trees, a gentle spirit who once protected two little girls, then let them go so they could grow. She is no longer angry, no longer broken, just a memory. And that memory lives on in every soft breeze, every falling feather, and every story told around a quiet fire.